You're listening to certified financial planner Doug Goldstein, host of the Goldstein on Gelt Show, www.goldsteinongelt.com.
I'm very excited to be talking to my good friend and partner in crime, not really in crime, but certainly partner on the podcast airwaves. Saul Sehy is the host of the Stacking Benjamins podcast, a former guest on the Goldstein on Gelt show. And perhaps you have heard Joe and me talking on the Money Tree podcast from time to time. But I just got him to come into the studio after running a full marathon. Joe, is that right?
Well, this fall I did. Today I ran 5.5 miles at a very
no way, really?
Pace. Yes.
Did you drive?
No, I believe it or not, I ran all 5.5. Well,
that is
almost all 5.5.
All right. Well, good for you. I hope you had a drink before and after.
A little bit of water, some coffee now, so I can get ready for the Goldstein on Gelt show. I mean, you got to have your coffee.
Nice. You know, Joe, it seems to me that you know a fair amount about money. At least you portray yourself as a guy who does that.
Pretend well.
Do you ever worry what's going to happen when you get old and, you're going to make a huge killing in the financial podcast market and you're going to leave money to your kids one day? How are they possibly going to know what to do with it?
I worry about that a little bit. I find that topic fascinating because I think it's really a moral dilemma about whether we, and by the way, I can't say that I've picked the lock on this in my own life. I just know it's a fascinating topic that you bring up, this idea of how much ruling from the beyond the grave should we do, right? I mean, after we leave this earth, should we tell our children exactly what they can and can't do with the money? Or at that point, I'm dead, who cares?
Yeah, okay, so that's actually a very good question. It wasn't what I was looking at. I was looking at when you're trying to get your kids ready. Just to be clear, I'm against ruling from the grave. I think you have to teach your kids during your lifetime. How do you do it? The problem is that I see in my practice as a financial advisor is so often people who are wealthy, they feel like they're helping their kids. They say, well, I'll pay for school, and which is, to me, I think very reasonable, and I'm going to pay for room and board because I'm their parents. And then it seems to just go on and on. Well, I got to give them a credit card in case he needs something. Is it that you should draw the line or you just teach your kids the right thing? What do you do?
I think that you have to turn everyday moments into teachable moments, right? That every single time that we deal with money, I think a lot of the time the children are around, they're doing something else. It's a great time to call them over. And let me give you a couple great examples. Like when you go to the grocery store, I remember Cheryl and I, when our kids, we have twins now that are 21, but when the twins were young, we'd go to the grocery store and the whole time the kids are just begging, can we get this? Can we get this? And it just turns this, what started off as a nice trip to the store into just absolute hell. Yeah. Ending with, you get to the checkout aisle and there's all the candies and the gums and all the extra stuff to buy there and they want even more. And it's just no. But it's funny. You can turn that whole thing into one big teachable moment. Teaching your children how to create a to-do list, right? Of all the things that we want to buy at the store. What are the things that we're going to buy? Going through maybe the Sunday paper or now going through some apps and looking for coupons and discounts ahead of time to see how prepared we can be. Working with a meal plan from the beginning. And then when we get to the store, everybody is on the same page looking for all these items. And even when we look at, like, let's say that you're looking at paper towels. A lot of people don't know this, but in the paper towel.
I got to tell you why I'm laughing. Hold on a second. I'm laughing because sometimes when I have trouble sleeping, I listen to this podcast, not the Stacking Benjamin show. I listen to this show called Sleep With Me.
Right.
It's this guy. He sounds like a great guy, but a little bit of a stoner, and he just tells these stories. And they're so boring that you fall asleep. Literally, that is his model. And I'm just laughing because when I was trying to show this to my kids, I said, listen, let's just turn one on. And we just turned it on. And the guy's teaching, telling a story about paper towels. So I'm laughing because I think now you're talking about that on the Goldstein on Gelt show.
Yeah, I'm trying
okay, everyone, stay awake. This is going to be good. Saul Sehy's got a punchline. Let me hear. So,
well, it is going to be good because most people don't realize this. But if you look at the price at the grocery store in almost every grocery store I've ever been in, Doug, there is a price per unit. And what's funny is what looks like the best price when you look at the whole package, when you get to price per unit, it isn't anywhere near the best price on the shelf. And so it was funny. I remember one trip to the grocery store when I taught my kids price per unit. We went around the entire store that day. Every single thing we bought, my kids wanted to compare the price per unit to the point that I had to cut them off, right? Just say, no, I want to get out of here at some point. But in that way, you take something as mundane as a trip to the grocery store. And look at what we taught them. We taught them about being prepared, about looking for value, about buying just the things that we need for the food plan. It's a fantastic opportunity.
Let's talk about one of the arguments that people make. And I have to say that I grew up my mother, as you may know, was a financial advisor. My grandmother was one of the first women to be licensed as a stockbroker in America. We were a kind of family who spoke about money and spoke about personal finance. And in fact, my parents gave me a credit card. And I believe I was fairly responsible with it. And I'm wondering, is it just because we spoke about it all the time, or I was just afraid because I had to turn in the receipt? Every time I would use the credit card, I'd actually have to give the receipt to my father so that, I knew that he was seeing what the money was being spent on. But he said, listen, Doug, now is the time when you should be focusing on your studies. I'm setting you up for that. And to me, it seemed very reasonable, and it was great. But on the other hand, a lot of times now that I'm, a grown up and I'm giving people advice and I see parents hand off their credit card to their kid, I think, oh my God, are you really trying to ruin that child?
I think it's
torn.
Yeah, I think it's surround sound and its tools. And I used to be negative credit card until I met this guy, Bill Dwight, who has a company called FAMU.com. And at FAMU, his whole goal, I think Bill has 5 kids. Bill created this budget. It's budget meets debit card. And basically the kids get a FAMU credit card for a very small fee, but it's linked to mom and dad's account. Mom and dad get to see all of the expenses as the child makes the expenses. You can also dole out allowances via that card. You can pay fake interest. You can figure out interest payments on phantom investments that you set up. So you can do all kinds of crazy things with FAMU that I like. But I was talking to Bill, and I said, this idea that you're talking about, Doug, about giving your kid a kid doesn't need a credit card. And you know what he said? He said that if you don't teach your kids habits about plastic before they leave the house, and everybody pays via plastic now, right?
Sure.
When are they going to learn it if they don't learn it at home? So he's right. Yeah, they don't need it, but they really need the lesson that just because they have a piece of plastic in their hand doesn't mean they have any money.
Yeah, what we did actually with our kids growing up is in fact, it started with my nephews. My brother and I are next door neighbors. My brother has 6 sons, and I've got 4 kids. And so the cousins were always, back and forth. And somehow, I don't really know why it started with me, but we created a bank called Uncle Doug's Bank. And the nephew started, and then eventually my kids came along, and they would deposit money. And I would also give them interest. So they would see a line item and learn the benefit of saving. And now what's funny is decades later, our kids, they get married, they're old already, and some of them still have accounts at Uncle Doug's Bank. Of course, now we have to be more official. They have to fill in forms, and we make it a little more tricky for them. Oh my gosh, Joe, look what time it is. I have to actually go open the window at Uncle Doug's Bank so I can give out. People are coming and asking for their money, and they know if the window's not open, then they're going to maybe run on the bank. So I got to split. Hey, Joe, Saul Sehy, just tell me in the last few seconds, how can people hear more of your brilliant ideas? The
Stacking Benjamin Show is a show, Doug, thanks for having me. It's a show based on the science of play that we actually learn more about money as we kind of play around. So we have 7 or 8 different topics per show, but they're always light. Instead of being the last place you go, our show wants to be the place that just gets you interested. Then you go find out more about later. Stacking Benjamins is wherever you listen to podcasts, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
All right. It's a great show. I certainly enjoy it. And be sure to listen to Joe, Saul Sehy, and me, and a couple of our other friends on the Money Tree podcast. Just check that out at iTunes or moneytreepodcast.com. Joe, thanks so much for your time. I'll see you soon.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Check out all of Doug's money ideas at goldsteinongelt.com. Doug specializes in helping people who live outside the United States handle their U.S. investment accounts. If you have a question that you would like answered on the air or off, contact Doug at his website or send him an email to doug@profile-financial.com.